This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions.
This is Joe. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you a simple screen setup that should bring into your attention a lot of interesting patterns. All right. Now, as many of you know, I go through thousands and thousands of charts one by one. I don't use screens anymore. I do screen for volume and make sure all the market caps are over 300 million. Of the stocks that I'm looking at. But other than that, I'm really just going through all the patterns and sorting them by sector. But one of the things you could do is create a simple screen. Now, you're still going to have to look at a lot of stocks, but I'm going to show you something that I think is an interesting pattern in the way that it's developed, and it's using ADX to really determine what we're looking for. So we're going to get into that now. Before we do, if you have an interest in learning some of these techniques, I would suggest starting with the book. I am offering it on my website now. It's rabilstockresearch.com/book to get more information. Also, if you do like this content, please hit the like button and also subscribe. Okay, so I'm using TC2000 today because I do like the screening ability on that. And I've created this. So this is the results of a screen that I did. And let me just show you what the screen is. So I've got the 13.8 ADX on the monthly chart, which is here, is true, meaning it's greater than 25. So that the ADX line itself on the monthly is above 25. All right. And then I've got the price is above the 18 month. All right. Now you can do this in any two time frames you want. If you want to make the weekly the higher time frame and then just switch these around. Now I also on the monthly chart I also have plus DI is greater than 25 because I'm looking for uptrends. All right. So far what we've got is ADX that's strong. It's confirming trend strength and confirming the ability to trend by looking at something above 25. It's above the 18 on that time frame, also important. And we know that the plus DI is showing that the buyers are in command. And then on this lower time frame weekly, I'm looking actually for where the ADX is below 25. All right. Now, I'm going to give you a couple examples. If we look at this first one, so these are a couple of stocks that I have highlighted in my reports over the course of, say, the last month or two. I'm going to give you a few examples and show you exactly the reason why they show up on the reports and when I'm starting to bring people's attention to them and why. All right. So the first thing we do is always look at the monthly chart. And when I see a stock that looks like this in any time frame, I'm intrigued. Move to the upside. Nice move. We created some air between price and the 18, which showed strength in MACD and strength in ADX. All right. And then we get our pullback back into the area of the 18 month. Now, when that's pulling back, we're creating this correction or an ABC pattern on the weekly chart. What I'm trying to identify is when the ADX, so I don't want to buy the first pullback because the ADX is still above 25. But if you notice, we went through and we got to our C, and then after another move and move down, now we're into this low ADX category. So I want to watch for stocks that are like this, strong ADX on this time frame, pulling back to the 18. And then they're actually usually what I call an opposing trend pattern. This is all out of my book and my courses, where the ADX is actually low, and this trend actually looks negative because the 18 is below the 40, while this time frame is up, right? And it's showing good momentum. So now the MACD is going to help us with the timing. And again, I go into that in a lot more detail in the courses, but the point I'm making here is that we're trying to identify stocks that have a strong trend on the higher time frame, but we're trying to identify when is a good time to start looking at it. All right. So we want to look at it as it gets near the 18 month and when on the lower time frame it has low ADX. So strong ADX is telling us more upside coming. Low ADX is telling us that the sellers are not that strong and we should look for continuation to the upside. So it's pretty simple. We're looking at above the 18 month. We're looking at green DI and control, strong ADX, and then on the lower time frame, a low ADX. So it's going to bring, now there's a lot of other stocks that are going to show up here. And, you know, an example like OWL is a pretty good example where we got a really nice pullback on the higher time frame, but it was a little sloppy. And then it did end up forming undercut and rally pattern. And look at this reversal here. But, this is the reason why I do the reports and send out and do the videos associated with it, help guys understanding the entry patterns on a lot of these. But look at something like AZEK, great example of something that I was highlighting with the zero line reversal, low ADX, strong ADX on this time frame, even a strong bullish pattern here. Look at the pullback to the 18-month. Look at this corrective pattern with no strength in the ADX, finally dropped down into a low ADX pattern, and we got the higher low and now emerging to the upside. So this is the kind of thing we're trying to find, all right? We want to understand. Now, why not just buy the moment this pulls back to the 18-month line? We have strength on the higher time frame, right? We've got confirmation overall, and we're pulling back to support. So why wouldn't we just buy the moment this comes down to 40 or something like that? Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, I want to make sure I can control the risk. And in order to do that, I need to know in the lower time frame that things are shifting back to the upside. Because if I'm going to buy on the way down and say at 40, where am I putting my stop? I don't have a place to put a stop. So I'm looking for a sign of a reversal on this time frame. Then I can use the reversal points as stop losses using the lower time frame. All right. But here's another reason. The other reason is that we can have all the same strength that we're talking about, breakout, and then the pullback doesn't hold the 18-month and it keeps dropping. Now, even though there's not a lot of strength in the sellers here, we've kind of done some damage to this monthly chart because now this line is starting to flatten out. All right. So we don't want to just buy the moment it comes back to the 18-month for this reason. We're looking for a pattern we're looking for a pattern reversal on the weekly chart after a correction that tells us that things are shifting back up. That has not happened yet in this stock. All right. And then the other thing I'll tell you is that as you go through these, you will notice more and more. So here's another example of too deep of a pullback. And we've broken the 18-month. We don't have that much strength in the sellers, but enough in the decline that tells me that this is probably not one we want to be focusing in on right now. Okay. Look at something like Page. So this is a completely different pattern. This is a stock that, is pulling back to the 18-month line, but it's a low ADX pattern on this time frame. So we're not looking for that opposing trend pattern. We're actually looking for a breakout in this time frame. So it's the reason why when I send out my reports, I send in my Wednesday video, I send out essentially a follow-up to my ideas and making sure people understand what is the pattern that we should be focusing in on. In this case, it's really not a turnaround pattern, it's a breakout pattern. We want to be looking for a breakout to the upside in something like this. Whereas on an AZEK, it's a reversal pattern. We're looking for this to reverse, not break out. So we want to take advantage of this reversal, buy this higher low here, and get in before it turns around to the upside. All right. So understanding all that, and there's a lot of stocks with this pattern here. Look at the strength of this ANF. Look at the strength based on the ADX. We're pulling back and correcting. Now we're getting this MACD back closer to the zero line on the weekly. We've got a low ADX condition. Now, up to this point, we really haven't had this. This has just happened in the last few weeks. Now we're in a situation where we can start to watch this a lot more closely, right? Look at something like CORR, another example of a stock that went, instead of correcting downward, it corrected sideways, right? And then we've got this sort of like a low ADX condition where we're really looking for a breakout to signify a reversal is kicking in to the upside. It looks like a reversal here, but we really need price to break out and confirm. So I would be continually looking for patterns this way. Now, here's something we also have to recognize. Here's NVIDIA passing this same screen. Strong ADX on this time frame, and now we have low ADX on this time frame. Now, the question becomes, because of the way this played out and it quickly tried to break out, is this a failed new high where we actually have divergence setting up? All right. So these are the small nuances you have to understand a little bit more. Like this to me is not really that good a setup. It didn't come down closer to the zero line to really give us a good setup. Now, you could have played it as a trading reverse divergence pattern. But because it didn't come down closer to the zero line, you got to be a lot more careful about playing this, because the upside continuation is definitely in question, especially now that the ADX is not confirming. So a lot of minor details, but the point I'm trying to make is that if you identify what we're looking for, and essentially what we're trying to find is strength on the higher time frame confirmed by ADX, by saying the ADX is above 25, right? So that's one thing. And we're above the 18, right? And then on the lower time frame, we're looking for low ADX. Now, you have to be able to analyze what's going on. Not every single one of these stocks. I mean, there's hundreds of stocks passing the screen. You got to be very careful about just throwing anything out there and saying, oh, it's passing the screen, I'm a buyer. It doesn't really work that way. But if you can identify stocks that are kind of meeting the general criteria of strength on the higher time frame, correction that gets the ADX low on the lower time frame, I think you're going to be hunting down some of the right names. All right. So keep this in mind. It is a simple screen. It isn't necessarily saving you a lot of time, but it is a simple screen that can kind of narrow your focus. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.